Hello and welcome to my live today. You guys, I'm super excited to share how my Zoe, I can't even talk right now because I'm so excited. How my Zoe gut health report is really making a difference. Some of you know, maybe you don't. My name is Jackie, co-founder of PLANTCHICS. And my background, I'm a registered dietitian by training, and now I do health coaching. And I've always had a love and passion for getting healthy and lifestyle medicine. And I have a big background in sales. And in sales, we are always looking at data. How can we increase sales? What can we do differently? What's working? What's not? And now I am that way about my health. What devices, what technology, because technology is so amazing. All this AI, artificial intelligence, like all of this stuff is super cool. But how can I use that to level up my lifestyle even more and improve on my health from where it is? So my goal of this entire live is to be very interactive. So please type in your comments, say hello, let me know where you're watching from. And if you have any questions, seriously, write them down. Because I want this to be very interactive. I want you to learn. I want you to ask me questions. I've gotten a lot of questions about Zoe. A lot of you are super interested. And I'm going to share some of my experience and some of the things that I've really learned. So without further ado, let's get this party started. I actually have some slides I'm going to be adding. And let me just make this a little bit different so they're not so ginormous. But excuse me. So right now, we're going to be talking about 5 ways my Zoe Gut Health report is helping me. And I'm hoping that some of this resonates with you because it really is super fascinating to me. So at PLANTCHICS, we're always talking about Inflammation Nation and how foods and different lifestyle factors can be inflammatory. And before I get into this in a little bit more detail, know that inflammation is totally normal. Like we need inflammation in our body. We need some of it. We don't need excessive inflammation. So like if you fall down and you scab your knee, Lord knows I've done that a bazillion times, or you cut yourself. I'm really good in the kitchen. And sometimes I cut myself or do something, or if I'm filing papers, which yes, I still do that occasionally, I'll get a paper cut. And whenever you cut yourself or you have like some injury, you notice how it gets red and it can get a little inflamed. That's inflammation. But this is also a signal that will tell your body that it needs to go in and start repairing what's damaged. So a little bit of inflammation is really important, and it's part of our natural, it's a part of the way our body works naturally. And we need some inflammation in our body. But what we don't need is chronic inflammation. And people talk about inflammation as a silent killer, and I have notes here, that's what I'm looking at. Inflammation is a silent killer. People with high blood pressure, when your blood pressure is constantly elevated, then that's like inflammation, just like this low grade of inflammation over the course of days, weeks, months, years, decades. And then all of a sudden you have a heart attack, you have a stroke, whatever, something happens and it can be lethal. So it's always my goal to see what I can do with my lifestyle through diet, through exercise, through sleeping, through meditation, through connecting with others, all these different things, right? How I can minimize my inflammation. And we do know that the more processed a food is, and I'm going to keep this all to nutrition because that's what the Zoe Gut Health Report is about, is how I can personalize my nutrition to work for my unique structure makeup to better serve my body. So we're all different. You're different. I'm different. Marcia and I are different. It's all super fascinating. But we know that donuts are inflammatory. We know that apples are good for us. But what about some of these foods that are in the middle that we don't really know about? This is where the secret sauce is. And one of the things that I learned that inflammation can increase in you through blood pressure, blood sugar spikes and dips when your blood fat remains too high for too long. And we all process sugars and fat differently. It's all unique within each of us. And then couple that with the health of your gut microbiome, that's the trifecta. And that's how Zoe, they look at all three of these. They analyze all three of these and they give you a guesstimated, and it's not like, oh yeah, let's see how this food impacts her. I took part in the study and I wore a continuous blood glucose monitor. I did some challenges in there. You say that you're going to take part in their clinical trial, which I highly recommend you guys to do. Then you get these muffins and you eat these muffins and they see how your blood sugars respond. And then you also do a blood fat test, which is done by a simple finger prick, super, super easy. And all of this is really painless. It's not anything significant, I promise you. But they look at all of these and they look to see, and you also do a fecal fat test. So you give a stool, not a fecal fat, you do a stool sample. So they look and see what your gut microbiome looks like. And they look at 15 gut bugs that have been shown to be protective and promote health. And they've also looked at 15 gut bugs that are more inflammatory and can lead to disease. And they look to see what your population is of these healthy gut bugs and the unhealthy gut bugs. They call them good and bad bugs. And then they put that together with your blood sugar response and your blood fat response. And that they give you a Zoe score. I'm going to get to all of these specifics in each of my other 5 little areas or 4 more areas where I found this super, super interesting. So my key takeaway here is foods. We know foods that are healthy and we know foods that are unhealthy, but what about all those foods in the middle that we don't really know how they impact us? And I was actually a little surprised on some of the healthy foods, how they cause more inflammation than what I knew. And I need to eat those more in moderation. So I'm obsessed with the gut microbiome. Marcy and I are obsessed with the gut microbiome and brains, like how our brains work here at PLANTCHICS. And if we can maximize our health and improve where we are today, we are all for it. We like looking at all these all the different technologies that's out there. And one of the things that we love, that I personally love about Zoe, is no foods are off limit. So if something doesn't have a high Zoe score, and I'm going to get to this in more detail later too, if something doesn't have a super high Zoe gut score or a Zoe score, then you can learn how to implement it into your meal or implement it into your day, along with other foods with their timing, to see if you can, or so that you can allow it or that you can eat it. So no foods are off limits. And also throw calorie counting out. They're all about food quality, which is exactly what Marcy and I say. We're all about 90% whole food, 10% soul food. And that's, again, how you can incorporate some of those Zoe scores, like the lower Zoe score foods, into your day. And then we're also not about calorie counting. We're more about counting calories, counting plants, counting fiber, if you want to count something. And they are all about counting plants and getting a diversity. So without further ado, let's get to number 2. So inflammation was super cool. I have a new understanding of inflammation and how I can incorporate it into my personalized health and nutrition. So again, I want to repeat, if anyone has any questions, please, please, please write your comments down here. Say hi. I want this to be very interactive and I want to be here to answer your questions. So inflammation is based on your own personal, how your body responds to blood sugars, blood fat, how you metabolize sugars, fats, and also the health of your gut microbiome. So let's get to number 2, blood sugar control, that BS. I have to throw something in there. And this is not BS, like the word that you're thinking. This is blood sugar control. And this is really important. Remember, if your blood sugar, like if your blood sugar spikes up or if it spikes down really low, if it drops really low, really fast, this is causing inflammation. And if you are consuming foods throughout the day with this big blood sugar spike and a drop, which we know ultra processed foods are going to do, We know that pizza, burgers, and including the plant-based meat, or I shouldn't even say plant-based meat, including the vegan meats that are out there, the vegan meat alternatives, these are going to cause spikes. They can cause spikes. So you've got to be very careful with the foods that you're eating. And you can't make any changes until you're aware of what's happening in your body. So this is one of the reasons I love this, because I can look to see like any food, and the Zoe app is amazing. They do so much great training and education, and I'll go through that as well. It's in a little bonus section. But I absolutely love, like, you can see how certain foods impact your health. So right here, this is my personalized Zoe report, like the foods that are good for me. And you see all these hundreds, and this is the gut booster. So this is good. It shows me what foods are going to help me diversify my gut microbiome, what foods are going to feed the good, healthy gut bugs. And then it will also tell me foods that are not good for my gut microbiome. It doesn't mean I can't have them, but it's telling me that I should enjoy them not so often, like in moderation, once or twice a week, or maybe once or twice a month. And there's some foods in here that I don't even eat, which is a bonus for me. But there are foods in here that I eat that I'm going to be eating less frequently because of what I've learned. So, interestingly enough, I've got a strong history of heart disease in my family, and I share this openly with you guys all the time. So I honestly thought my blood sugar control would come back pretty good. And I thought my blood fat control, I thought that's where I was going to have to be more cognizant, which I have to be cognizant of all these areas. But I really thought that blood sugar would be good. Blood fat probably wouldn't be as good because of my family history of all this heart disease. And I mean, my dad, my biological father, just had a quadruple bypass last April. My mother has new onset of atrial fibrillation. She's got new heart things going on. So I honestly thought that's where it was going to impact me. And I did think that my gut health would be pretty good because I don't drink anymore. Alcohol, especially excessive alcohol intake, it is not good for your gut health. I've been plant-based or plant-forward for the past, how long? Like 6 years. So I thought actually a little bit longer than that, like 8, plant-forward for about 8 years. So I thought that I would be pretty good there. I exercise, like all of these things are really good for my gut health. Well, stay tuned because I will get to that in a little bit. But my blood sugar control, my friends, was poor. It was low. It was not good. It doesn't mean that I'm pre-diabetic. This didn't freak me out when I saw it. This is all like really good information for me to have so that I can start making changes because I didn't know this before. And I didn't know that until I got my gut health report back a couple weeks ago. So I slowly been making some changes, and you will be seeing me creating more recipes and doing more things that support my Zoe gut health, or my gut health, not my Zoe gut health, but my gut health. So it's super, super fascinating. So it was interesting to me because I love me some sweet potatoes. I have them occasionally. I actually haven't been eating as many potatoes. I've been doing some pastas and stuff, but not a lot. Like I've really been trying to get my carbohydrates more from beans. I know they're high in protein and we focus on those for protein sources, but I really have been trying to focus on beans as more of my carbohydrate focus and having a little bit higher protein intake, which is still way lower than what most people do because protein is not the end all be all, but that's another life in and of itself. But I do have sweet potatoes. They're amazing for you. They're so good for your gut health. All potatoes are. But my Zoe gut report says that I should be eating these in moderation, like a couple times a week at the most. And there have been times where I have them a lot more than that. When I was at my mom's, I was making soups and I would put all kinds of potatoes in there. So there's like little things like that that I can tweak. And maybe instead of adding potatoes, I can add another carbohydrate-rich food like beans, because beans scored very, very well for me instead. And also what I can do is I can add some like fats to the soup, which would help improve the overall Zoe score. But I'll get into that in more detail on point number 4, 5. I'm looking at my notes, my cheat sheet. So sweet potatoes scored lower for me. So that's something I'm being cognizant of and I'm watching. And one thing that I also love, like every time I go to the grocery store, I can use my Zoe app and I can look at foods and see what my personalized Zoe score is on each of these. And again, I'll get into that in a little bit. So another thing, some of my favorite fruits actually scored low, and I'm going to be making some significant changes there. Y'all, I was eating bananas on the daily, sometimes twice a day. I'd always have them with nut butter. Very rarely would I have them alone, but I would make these delicious like banana muffins. I actually need to upload that, and I'll get to this in a minute too, to see what the overall Zoe score is, or maybe I need to tweak the recipe. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to tweak recipe so I can increase my Zoe score and still love, eat these. But it's bananas, dates, tofu, cacao, nut butter. It's all these different fabulous ingredients. But both bananas and dates had a low score. Like, try and have these once or twice a week. And I also need to watch the quantity. So it's not like I can never have them, but these are some different fruits that I should eat more sparingly than what I was doing before. Doesn't mean I can't have them, which I'm super excited about because, again, no food is off limits with PLANTCHICS and also with Zoe Gut Health, which is really way cool. Raisins. My husband eats raisins all the time. I eat raisins with nut butter, with almond butter. So good. Raisins, not so good for my gut health, which is interesting. Watermelons, pineapples. All right, so these I did almost cry on. Is what it is. Doesn't mean I can't have them, but I will be eating them a little bit less often. So that was really fascinating to me. It was fascinating to learn that my blood sugar control wasn't the best, but it also gives me tips on how I can still eat these foods, but just work on the timing and the spacing. So I'll go over that in gut health and Zoe scores on number 5. Okay, next one, blood fat control. This was super interesting to me because I thought this was not going to be good. However, I actually scored pretty good in blood fat control, which I was super, super surprised with. But one of the things, and I've known this before, one of the things with blood fat is when we eat a meal with fat in it, whole food fat, refined fat, processed fat, whatever, the fat stays in our blood for 6 to 8 hours. Let me repeat that. The fat stays in our blood for 6 to 8 hours. Now, what happens when we are eating multiple times throughout the day? And all plants have carbs, proteins, and fats. They've got everything. So what happens when we are eating these foods that have fat in them? The blood fat, it's like stays in it doesn't get processed. And then that's when inflammation can start happening. This is also when hardening of the arteries can start happening. And this all, like, the healthcare professionals are seeing kids with type 2 diabetes, kids under 18, like children too, like single digits, with heart disease and with diabetes. And it's all lifestyle related, has a lot to do with our nutrition. So it's really, really important that we start paying attention to the foods that we're eating. Our body's a temple, and if we can choose foods that are more nourishing and healing to our body, it's so much better. So remember, fat stays in our blood for 6 to 8 hours. And when we're snacking multiple times throughout the day or grazing throughout the day, when we're eating those fats, they're staying in the blood. And if they don't get cleared, this is another thing that can cause inflammation. So if you're grazing throughout the day, if you're having fat, if you're eating processed and refined foods with a lot of fat in it, that's causing inflammation. So you got to be careful with it. One of the things that I do love with the Zoe app, when you enter your foods, and this is just like the PLANTCHICS tribe, this is just like our PLANTCHICS lifestyle. The more you put into the Zoe app, like entering your meals, doing all this, the more you get out of it. The more you work out in our PLANTCHICS lifestyle, the more you get out of it. The more engaged you are in our PLANTCHICS tribe, the more you get out of it. You've got to show up, you've got to be active, you've got to get engaged, and the more you will get out of it. So it was fascinating to me. It was a good reminder to hear that fat stays in our blood for 6 to 8 hours. And this is another thing that helped me to stick to like 2-ish meals a day. Like I have 2 meals and a snack. Sometimes I do 1 meal a day, sometimes I do 3. It varies. But really, I've been eating like 2 meals a day. And Lumen got me started on this path. And Zoe is helping reinforce what I'm doing, the changes that I'm making. So it's been super, super interesting. And one of the things that I've learned, and I've known this, but one of the things that Zoe has helped reinforce with me is like a lot of times I just grab an apple, I grab a banana, and I wouldn't have it with nuts or nut butter or seeds or something. But Zoe, it's reinforced that I do need to have some fat. And it's not like tablespoons or a quarter cup or a half a cup of nut butter. It's not a ton of fat, but I do need a little bit of fat with my fruit or with my snack that I'm having, especially if it's a fruit, because it's going to slow my blood sugar rise and it's going to help minimize the inflammation that I can get from a super, super healthy food like a banana, like some dates, like pineapple, like watermelon. So these are some really big things that reinforce why I need to make some different food choices and different snack choices that I've been making, or different meal choices, planning different meals, adding different things to meals. Super, super fascinating. And I love it, love it, love it. All right. So nuts and seeds, these are all really good, like whole food fats that are good for me in small quantities, because remember, fats stay in our blood for 6 to 8 hours. And I do, again, I love, and I haven't had this alert yet, but I love it when that Zoe app alerts you that you've had too much fat, and like slow down, like take a minute, pause before you consider eating this. It doesn't say you can't, but it does recommend like waiting, and it does alert you, which is super amazing, super cool. All right. So my blood sugar control was not that good. My blood fat control was pretty good. And my gut health report, this was fascinating. The way we respond to foods, I'm just reading some notes, differs for each and every one of us based on our blood sugar control, our blood fat control, and the health of our gut microbiome. Again, Zoe tests these 15, I'm trying to use my hands on the right side, 15 good gut bugs and 15 bad gut bugs. And they tell you how much of each of these you have in your gut microbiome. And I had decent amounts of the good gut bugs that I had a very good amount. Like they were in good quantities. But there were several that I didn't have at all. And let me tell you, I thought that I was going to have really good. I'm going to get to your question in 1 second. I'm so happy that you asked this question. But where was I? Sorry, I shouldn't have showed your comment yet. I'm sorry. I'll get back to that. I promise you I will. But the good gut bugs, I had good amounts of a lot of them, but I didn't have some of them. And I thought that I thought my gut microbiome was going to be amazing because I was breastfed. My mom breastfed me. I was breastfed for 2 years. And I asked my mom, I'm like, well, why'd you stop? She was like, you just stopped coming to me, which is amazing. Back in the 60s, that was amazing. My mom did a lot of work around breastfeeding, which I love. I was a nutritionist for WIC, Women, Infants, and Children. And I taught women to breastfeed, even though I have no children and I never breastfed. That's a whole nother topic too. But I was breastfed. I have taken antibiotics, and I've taken like more than I care to admit, but like with surgeries and as an adult, I took antibiotics as a kid, but I didn't have those notorious earaches because I was breastfed and I didn't sleep with a bottle. So I thought, honestly, my gut health report was going to be really good. But my friends, it was not. It wasn't that good. I'm like, this one was kind of sad for me, but it didn't like send me into a tailspin or anything. I'm like, seriously? So I wasn't thrilled with that, but it's okay because I can always work to improve it, which is super cool and super amazing. So my good gut bugs, the importance of this is I need to really focus on the foods that are good. They're gut, what do they call it in Zoe? Let me look. They call it gut boosters. I need to add more of those foods, more gut boosters. And I need to minimize my gut suppressors, which I already minimize a lot of them. But obviously, there's room for improvement, which I'm down for. And I always know there's room for improvement. So I was bummed that my gut health wasn't as good as I thought it would be, but it's okay. Where do we see? Okay. Also, one of the things that I really, really love about Zoe is they focus on food quality over counting calories, which is something that Marcy and I talk about all the time. We're so into food quality, foods that are nourishing and healing to our gut health, to our mental health. And these are typically whole foods, as close to natural as possible. These foods are good for us. But I also learned that some fruits might not be as good for me if I eat them by themselves. So I just have to learn how to plan around and change them a little bit. And also, no foods are off limits with Zoe. That's one of the things they talk about. That's something that we also talk about. And they also are really big on teaching you how you can combine foods in meals or throughout the day to improve your Zoe score, which I'll get to on the next topic that of the 5 things that I learned. And that is super, super cool and amazing. So I had decent amounts of the good bugs, of the ones I had, but the bad gut bugs, this was interesting, and this shouldn't have surprised me. And the woman that I spoke with at Zoe, she's like, oh my gosh, I've never seen this. Like, all the bad gut bugs I had, they were in such small quantities, which is good. That's actually really, really good. And you know what? Anything that you get, like if you're interested in doing Zoe, first of all, if you have any questions, comment, let me answer them now. I'll do my best to answer them. If I don't have the answers, I'll get back to you and I can do some follow-up lives because I'm all about that. And we'll also send more information out in our newsletter. Just send us your email. We can add you to our newsletter. Head over to our website, plantchicks.com. You can sign up there as well. Let's see. And okay, so my gut health report, not good, but I couldn't always make changes. All right, we've got a question here. Have I had my A1C checked? How does your Zoe blood sugar control correlate with your A1C? And I don't know. This is a really good question. I don't. Now I have to look back. Let me see if I can get in my Quest app right now. I don't know if, because I get my lab work done annually from my doctor, and they always, let me see here. Okay. He always checks my blood sugars, my glucose, but I don't know that I ever have A1C, hemoglobin. I'm looking right now, to be honest with you. Oh, I do get A1C. How come I can't see it? My A1C has always been totally normal. So how does this correspond? This is a really good question. And how the blood glucose, they're just looking to how specific foods increase and decrease, like how your body metabolizes sugars. And they look at foods specifically based on your gut health, your blood sugar control, and your blood fat control to give you an overall Zoe score for specific foods, and how that can cause more inflammation or be super, super healthy for you. So because my blood sugar control wasn't as good, if I'm eating foods that are high in carbohydrates or have that spike my blood sugar is a little bit higher, then I need to make sure that I'm adding some fat to that meal so I can metabolize it more. And when I was doing when I was wearing the continuous blood glucose monitor, my blood sugar, it was always within the normal range. Like, it was never too high, too low, except this was during Lent. So I was fasting on Fridays. I started it like the very last Friday of Lent, and I fasted all day Friday, and I didn't eat until breakfast on Saturday morning. And that Friday night into Saturday morning, my blood sugars dropped low, like in the lower than the normal range. And that alerted my monitor. And then there was one time, this was interesting. One time, and Mom and I were running around, this is when I was in Georgia. We were running around all day. I hadn't eaten all day. And I went to Sam's, I think, and I got these like lentil chips, not healthy. They're processed. So again, like processed foods is going to increase your blood sugars. So we were eating some of those on the way home. And then I came home and I ate grapes. I kid you not, my blood sugar shot up to 200, and that's high. So as soon as I saw that, I thought it was kind of cool actually when they dropped really low that one time and also when they shot up. But I'm like, oh, I literally put on my tennies and my sister and I went out for a walk and my blood sugars came right down. So it was fascinating. I actually loved it. And I would love to be able to wear that CGM, continuous glucose monitor, like maybe once a quarter or twice a year, just to see how my body responds. So that was fascinating. And I hope I answered your question. If I didn't, ask some more and I'll keep them going. And okay, yes. And yeah, my A1C is good. And literally send me a DM on PLANTCHICS or on Facebook and we can set up a call. I'll actually add my Calendly link for a 15-minute like talk about this because this is really, it's so cool. And I've had some really amazing insights. And I don't think that Zoe is for everybody. I think it's for people who are interested in tweaking what they're doing to help them get healthier. So like I said, I was in sales for all these years. I've always had to look at data to see how things are working, what's not working. When you're driving a car, you've got the gas indicator telling you when your tank is full, when it's empty, and when your ass needs to get to the filling station, to the gas station and get gas. This is like my gas tank, like my gas indicator. Zoe is showing me foods that I should consume to keep my tank full and foods that I should not eat as often as what I was doing based on how my body responds. So it's fascinating. It's really, really fascinating. So the gut health, although I was bummed that it wasn't like crazy amazing like I thought it would be, I was still super fascinated. And I'm so glad I did this, the Zoe Gut Health Report or the Zoe Gut Test to see how I can make some changes and how I can level up because I'm all about improving my health span. I'm all about helping you to learn how you can improve your health span. And these are tools that I think that would be very helpful. All right. And my last thing that I love about Zoe are the Zoe scores. And the Zoe scores, you get food scores, you get meal scores, you get day scores. I don't know if we get like monthly scores or anything like that. So I'm going to have to do a follow-up live and let you know about this. So the meals, first of all, the food scores. I showed you like how some of these are impacting where's Zoe? I'm showing you like snacks. It has different foods, how they rate on Zoe. Like these are all the individual foods and they have a color coding system, which I always love color coding. They've got orange for like, girl, no. Look at this. This is sad, actually. Mango. Mango has a 0. It's like you really don't need to be eating this. But again, no food is off limits. So I can have dried mango, but I'm probably going to have it with a nut and it's going to be in a small quantity. And I can add it maybe to a salad too or a dish. So that was really interesting. Oh, rice cake unsalted also got a 0 for me. I didn't recognize that. But this is actually good because I do like me some rice cakes every once in a while. But I'm going to see, and I'm going to start playing around with this. I'm going to be sharing more recipes on PLANTCHICS on how I am bringing some of these foods in to my life and increasing my Zoe score. So stay tuned. And all right, so individual foods are rated. They're giving you a number and they're color coded. And it goes from 0 to 25. And those are like moderation. You don't want to eat them regularly at all. 26 to 50. And those are like, all right, enjoy occasionally. Don't need to eat these every day. And then the next green is like 51 to 75. And these are enjoy, but not liberally. You can have them a couple times a week or whatever. And then 76 to 100, they're like, eat up. And let me tell you, I've got like over 75 foods that I favorited in my app. So I can look, like I can really use this when I go to the grocery store and I'm grocery shopping, which is super cool. And I need to do some lives about that, or I need to do some reels or TikToks about that. So that's really fun and amazing. So foods have an individual Zoe score, again, based on my personal blood sugar control, blood fat control, and gut health. Your Zoe scores are going to look very different than mine. And this is the beauty of doing this test, right? By tweaking your diet based on your results, would that help with symptoms like bloating? 100%. 100%. Yes, yes. And this is one of the things that I love. So yes, for sure. Okay, so foods have their Zoe score. Meals have their Zoe scores. And then you also get day scores for Zoe. And your goal, of course, is to get all the way to 100. So I have gone through the app, and I have also, I've saved some favorite meals that they've planned out for me, like they've created, not just for me, but they're in the Zoe app. So I favorited some meals, some new ones that I really want to try. And then I also make some meals, like some regular ones that I have at home. I've input them into the app, and it gives me a Zoe score based on the foods that I put in there, the ingredients that I put in there. And that is so fun. This is where the more you use your Zoe app, the more you'll get out of it. So it's important that you input your meals, you check on yourself to see how you're doing. And then it's also it'll be like in your face saying, yes, Jackie, eat more, do more of that, because this is good. This is really good for your health. Or it might say, Jackie, you might want to not eat this as often if it's like an individual food or whatever. Or if I have a lower Zoe score for a meal, my next meal, if it's higher, it's going to bring up the day score at the end, right? So there's ways, again, that you can incorporate all these foods into your life. Do I need to have watermelon every day? No. Do I want to? Sometimes, yes. But now I know that I need to change the timing that I have them. Like I'll eat it with some more fats, or maybe I'll have it in a smaller quantity in a salad or with something, versus just having watermelon by itself with maybe some tahini or some pink Himalayan sea salt. So I'm making some changes here that have been really, really, really fun, that I really, really love. So absolutely love it. And one of the other things that I love about this, and I haven't seen it happen yet, is if I've eaten too much fat, the Zoe app is going to alert me, and it's going to remind me to start scaling back a little bit. So that's really cool. You asked, when you wear the continuous CGM, do you have to track all your food? You don't have to, but it's better that you do. And here's why. That way, Zoe will know when you're eating, because they can see all this data, but they can see what you're eating and how it's impacting your blood. So like when you do the challenges, if you're doing if you're taking part in the study, again, I recommend that you do it. They give you these test muffins. Some have more sugar, some have more fat, and they look to see how your body's responding. And you literally enter the time that you ate it, the time that you finished, and then you don't eat or drink anything for 3 hours. The only thing you can have is water. I think you can have black coffee, or tea, but nothing else. You can't have you can't have cream in your coffee. You can't have sugar in your coffee. Water, black tea, or coffee tea without anything in it, and coffee without anything in it. And this is really important to see. And then they also, if you take part of the study, they have several other challenges that you can do, and you can pick from the challenges. And that was so fascinating to see. And it was really cool for me to see straight on how my blood sugars were responding. Like one of the challenges I did, it was comparing different breakfasts. So one breakfast was eating a white plain bagel. I have to say that bagel was good, but it's something that I haven't had in years probably. So one white plain bagel, nothing else that morning for breakfast. And I'm like, this is kind of weird. But my blood sugars went up, dropped down, and I was hungry in 3 hours. This was fascinating. And I also was really tired. So it's really important that one of the things I also love about Zoe that I didn't mention before is it encourages you to pay attention to how you feel and just start paying attention to your body and being mindful. And that's something that I teach in Level Up Your Lifestyle, my 12-week group coaching classes that I'm doing through Planted Forward. And it's something that Marcia and I teach in our PLANTCHICS lifestyle. So it's really important that we do become aware of how food makes us feel. So that was interesting to see how my blood sugars spiked up and down. I was hungry and I was tired in 3 hours. Next day was almond butter. I had to eat only almond butter. Forget the quantity. That was it. Nothing else. And I actually was satiated. I had energy, and my energy was pretty even keel. The end of 3 hours, I wasn't hungry. I was good, but it was like noticeably different. And then the next day was eating both of them, and they changed the timing. Like there was a timing, like have the bagel first, then the peanut butter, like wait for a set amount of time and then have the peanut butter. And then the next day was have the peanut butter, wait a certain amount of time, have the bagel. And then the next day was eating them all together. And that was fascinating to see also how my blood sugars changed. But I have to say, I felt the best when I had just the nut butter, the almond butter, and I wasn't hungry and I felt better. But it was also interesting to see when I had the nut butter with the white refined bagel, how I wasn't as tired, I wasn't hangry, and I wasn't hungry at the 3 hours. So it was interesting to see how the combining of the food also panned out on my body. Me personally, that's me. You might respond very differently. So I learned some of the stuff just by doing these challenges while I was wearing the CGM, the continuous glucose monitor. That was fascinating. That then getting my report like 6 weeks, and I have to tell you, those 6 weeks waiting, that was not fun, but it was also exciting. I'm like, do I have the results yet? Do I have the results yet? And you get them electronically. So it's really, really cool. So yes, that was, it is important to track your food while you're wearing the CGM, just to help with to track everything. But during the challenges, they track everything. They tell you exactly when to eat the foods, or you choose the time that you eat them. You record when you eat them, when you're done. You confirm that you didn't have anything to eat or drink aside from water, black coffee, or tea without anything in it. And then you see how that works out. But then you can also just experiment yourself with the CGM to see how your body responds to different foods. Like grapes, I had no idea. And I was messaging back and forth with one of my friends, Rachel Yogi, she on Instagram. She has type 1 diabetes. She wears a CGM. She has to. She's got diabetes. And we were going back and forth. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I was so surprised. Grapes, like shot them up. I think it was a combination of not eating all day, having those lentil crisps, which are totally processed and refined, eating those and the grapes. But it was also cool to see how exercise impacted it. And that was also another challenge, exercise and how it impacted it. So there we go. Is it time consuming? You already have one, Zoe. Oh my gosh, that's great. Again, and I know who you are now because it just says Facebook user, and you have a beautiful Zoe at home. It's the more you put into it, the more you get out of it. Again, that's the important step. It's not like always when you're learning something new, there is a learning curve. So just learning, and honestly, like it's been fun going through the Zoe app and seeing how these different foods, how they impact my gut health, and how, like the foods that I should be including, and maybe meals and snacks that I should be including. So there is a little bit of a learning curve, but once you get through that learning curve, it goes much faster. And I do personally recommend, and I have not been doing the best job at it, but I do recommend that you track your meals, and you don't have to enter them right as you're eating them. But I do encourage you to track your meals if you do try this, to see what your Zoe meal scores and day scores are, just to see how you can tweak and modify things. So I hope that makes sense. And I'm really happy that I'm finally getting to do it and talking about it. I am going to be talking more and more about it because I'm learning so much from it, and it's a lot of fun. So I'm really, really enjoying that. So I love the Zoe scores. I love how I've learned more about inflammation, my personal blood sugar response, my personal blood fat response, my gut health that I wasn't thrilled about, but how all three play into foods that are more inflammatory to me specifically, and how I can tweak some of my meals. So I've got some bonus content for you as well. Some of the things that I love about Zoe is the gamification. If a lot of you that follow us at PLANTCHICS are big fans of Dr. B, the Gut Health MD, and you can tell he's working with the company because the language they use in the app, the marketing, the education that they have within the app, they send out really good emails, get on their email list. But every day they have tools. They've got a little bit of education for you. And literally it takes 5 or 10 minutes to do those. So you can do those while your kiddos are sleeping, while they're resting. You can do it while you're waiting at a doctor's appointment for something. Like, you can read through these, and remember, it's good for us to focus on things that are good for our health. And if you can tweak things and make yourself healthier, why not want to do it? But I have to say, this is not for you if you're not going to implement these things. Like, I hate seeing people buy things and then they don't use them and they don't get their money's worth. I'm like the cheapest person. And if I'm going to do something, if I'm going to invest in something, I'm going to do it because I want to get my money's worth. But I'm also not going to invest my money in something that doesn't really make sense to me. It might not be clinically sound. And this, like a lot of the studies going into Zoe have been published in Nature. And Nature is one of the premier journals for scientists. So getting into getting into the journal Nature is very, very hard. And I've been on the other end. Like, I've worked with companies where they have submitted articles to be published or studies to be published. And the things that you have to do to get published in different journals is very, very hard. And I've seen how the editors come back and forth and like, nope, you need to do this, that, and the other. And I've also seen different articles get declined, or different studies getting declined to be published. Zoe is in there. They do a lot. And one of the things I also love about Zoe is that they're really, really active, and they're going to be doing more research around menopause. More than half of the world's population will be going through menopause, and there's very little research around menopause. Zoe is they're putting research into studying menopause. This is huge. And for this, I'm super excited. But so the bonuses here, I love the education that they have each day, and like different challenges that they have, and the education, the gamification, they make it like a game. So it's super, super fun. So I love it. And I recommend it if you are looking to tweak what you're doing and maybe elevate a little bit more. And there are never any silly questions. What is it like sleeping with the monitor on? I'm so glad you're asking this. It's great. Wearing a short sleeve tee, or do you recommend just wearing tanks the majority of the time? Honestly, I was a little bit worried about what it might be like wearing one of those CGMs too. And I've known so many people who have CGMs. I know a lot of type 1s, and they wear them. And I've always wondered, even like seeing them wearing it, like what it would be like. First of all, let's even back up. What was it like putting on? When you put it on, if you choose to do this, I don't recommend looking at the little spikes that are going to go into you, because I made that mistake. I'm like, how is this not going to hurt? But I literally put it on and barely even felt it. And you do it like right at the back of your arm. I think I posted a reel like showing where it was. So they tell you exactly where to put it. And it's in a place that it's not like you don't rub on it very much or anything. So they like the companies that tell you about CGMs, they've done a lot of work. So sleeping with it, not a big deal. There were a couple times that I brushed up against things, or like I was trying to lay down doing something and I like pushed it a little bit, but it was fine. It didn't hurt. And I know, like, it was summer, so I was definitely wearing tanks. I was probably trying to show it off a little bit. No one ever asked me about it either. I was kind of bummed, to be honest with you. But no, it was fine. You can wear you can wear tanks, you can wear long sleeves, you can wear short sleeves, you can wear anything. You don't have to worry about the clothes. I did not try and wear anything that was fitted, like sleeves. So I don't know about that. I can't answer your question about that. But honestly, it was no big deal. It was really pretty cool. And yeah, so wear whatever you feel comfortable in wearing. But that was a great question. So if any of you are interested in trying it out, first of all, if you've got any questions, DM me, ask away. I'm here for you. You can reach out to Zoe also. They're super, super responsive. But seriously, feel free to reach out to me. I'm really impressed with everything that they're doing. I will not recommend products or foods or anything that I truly don't believe in and that I personally don't use. So this I can 1000% get behind. So if you're interested in learning more, yes, ask me questions. Also, if you want to save some money, use our code PLANTCHICS. PLANTCHICS. Yes, I'm just gonna make that a little bit bigger so you can see it. Use our code PLANTCHICS and just go to their website, joinzoe.com, use our code PLANTCHICS, and where am I? Use our code PLANTCHICS and save 10%. So, oh yes, and showering with the CGM on, no big deal. The one thing that you cannot do is, and I went out on the boat twice while I was wearing my CGM, but you shouldn't swim or like be submerged like in like a bath or whatever for more than 30 minutes. So literally, like I remember one day I was out on the boat and I was in and I'm like, shoot, I can't stay in and play all day. So I jumped out and people were like, you're already getting out? I'm like, I got this on. But it was well worth it. Well worth it. Some people are also like Marcia, she's going to be doing this, but I think she's going to start doing Zoe and like wear the CGM when she comes back from her sabbatical towards the end of this month. And like some people are like, well, I want to wait until I'm home and like I'm kind of in my normal routine. Do you? But honestly, I was kind of thinking that I would be home for most of the time I was there, but I ended up going to Georgia. I went out on 2 boat parties that I hardly ever go out on boat parties, but I was doing things that I don't normally do. But it was cool to see how it impacted my blood sugars. I really, really, really like that. And it would be fun to be able to wear that CGM maybe another time during the year. Because I was like ready to be done with it after 2 weeks, which I'm sorry if you're a type 1 and you're wearing them all the time. Although I would be fascinated if I had diabetes. I would definitely want to wear it always. But I was ready to get it off at the end of the 2 weeks. Not because it was bugging me, but just because I was over entering everything. And I was over like seeing how it was impacting my blood. I'm like, no, or my sugars. But it was fascinating at the same time. So I do want to wear a blood glucose monitor again, but I don't think that that's part of the trial, at least not yet. But again, showering, no problem, but you should not swim or like be in water or sauna, like hot tub for more than 30 minutes at a time. So I want to thank you guys for being here, for participating. If you have any questions whatsoever, please don't hesitate in reaching out to me on PLANTCHICS on my personal Instagram at FabulousJackie. And if you know you want to get Zoe, go to joinzoe.com, enter our code PLANTCHICS, You're helping our small business while you do this. And then I want to be here for you on your Zoe journey as well, because it's been so, so fascinating learning about my personal gut health. And I'm going to be showing how I'm going to be tweaking some of the plant plates that we have, and also how I'm going to be like adjusting some of my like regular meals. My tofu scramble, I'm happy to report, has like a really high Zoe score. It's like 80 something. So that is amazing. And I can like tweak that recipe too and make it even higher, and I can tweak it and make it lower. So it's really fun learning. So thanks again for being here. Really happy to be here, and ask any questions. I'm always here for you. You guys take care. And I'm heading over to PLANTCHICS on Instagram. I'm going to be talking about the same information. So if you want to hear it, maybe you need to hear it one more time, head over. This is also going to stay live. It's going to stay forever on YouTube and here on the tribe, so you guys can always come back and rewatch it. Ask any questions. Bye, guys.